The story of Akasha's versus Ali Punjani. How Ali Punjani built his empire and network. After Ibrahim Akasha was slain in Amsterdam in 2000, he left a big gap in the narco trade, which needed to be filled. However, instead of his family stepping up, it was involved in endless wars that created a perfect opportunity for new players to fill. Some tried but failed, and it's only one playa who really fit the Don's shoes. That playa is Mr. Ali Badruddin Punjani, who had gained access to the port after being employed by his sister's husband Amin Nathu of the Shamash brothers. Amin illegally imported sugar and repackaged it into local brands while transporting coca disguised as sugar imports. This trade he taught Ali Punjani all so well that Punjani later set up his own company as well, Rising Star Commodities, cementing himself as a business mogul. In addition, Ali doubled as a clearing port agent for Israeli firm, Amarin, which its telecommunications arm provided equipment to GSU and AP. This meant that Amarin's cargo moved in and out of Kenya without inspection, providing Ali with a loophole for smuggling. Disguised as a sugar importer with a transport company, Ali moved drugs in bulk unnoticeably. However, he still needed to oil palms of security top shotas as a way of guaranteed protection. So he made sure he oiled cops in Mombasa. Sadly, he understood this was not tenable for a long period since cops follow whoever is in authority. So together with fellow port agent Abu Joho, they decided to sponsor Ali J to vie for MP Kisauni during the 2007 elections. That way he knew they'd both secure protection to handle their business. Punjani had been introduced to the Jays at the port by Mombasa speaker Aharub Khatri, whom he had taken under his wing, before Aharub left him for the Jays. Their partnership aided a big deal in oiling Jay's campaign, ensuring that he beat Ananias Morboza by landslide. Previously, Ananias had beaten Jay in 2004 by a mile. Jay's success meant that Ali Punjani now had political protection as early as 2007, which enabled him to do as he pleased since nobody could touch him, as Jacob Juma opined. He was the boss of the bosses, earning big bucks while climbing up the ladder from a mere MTU Wamkono to a billionaire with over 19 cops manning his Nyali house and fleet of cars. His house is a sight to behold. When fire engulfed Faza Island in Lamu in 2009, leaving over 2,000 people homeless, and President Kibaki asked people to fundraise for the victims, Ali Punjani decided to show people why they call him boss of the bosses. He waited until the president donated Ksh3M to the victims during the fundraiser, as the highest individual amount, and then he casually walked to the president and doubled the president's money. He donated Ksh6M to the victims, shook the president's hand, and left. Moreover, he proved money is more powerful than looks when he wooed sexy Bollywood actress Kim Sharma to marry him when she visited Kenya in Aug 2010 for a one-week vacation. During her stay, she met Ali Punjani, who spoiled her with money and the best Kenyan experiences, such that she immediately called off her wedding to Spanish singer Carlos Marin, whom she had been engaged to in March. Ali Punjani took the babe to Cloud 9 emotionally and financially, and 6 days later Kim Sharma was saying "I do" in a private ceremony on 23 August 2009 in Mombasa, a wedding that was so secret, but exclusive to distinguished guests who were personally invited, like Kisauni MP Ali J, the man Ali Punjani had sponsored during the elections, for protection, and a close business associate. Business that was confirmed by Minister George Saitoti to be drug businesses, as he named the two amongst the list of top traffickers in Kenya in December 2010. Surprisingly, Ali Punjani was the only businessman in a list of 6 MPs, a surprise which dropped hints of his dalliance with politicians, and was later confirmed in Kisumu, when youth staged protests in his name. Because why would youths in Kisumu stage protests for a man 823 kilometers away in Mombasa? Sadly, the death of Minister Saitoti in a plane crash slowed down investigations to these claims, but the relationship between Punjani and Jay continued all through, as he sponsored him and more candidates in 2013 elections to secure protection. When Jay secured the governor's seat in Mombasa in 2013, Punjani was among a list of people who donated cars to police. These cars they'd use for their benefit, something that irked the county commissioner, who came out to press claiming that police and their vehicles were being used to ferry drugs. In fact, he said his officers were frustrating him, and that's because they were in Punjani's pockets. When Punjani got a road named after him, it confirmed his might in the Mombasa region. He had successfully toppled the Akashas, and this was the reason for their beef. First victim was Tony Sanghani, Punjani's right man, who was beaten to the ICU unit by Akashas. The death of their father, Akasha's sons were held up in family wars that gave chance to Ali Punjani set up his foundation as Don in Kenya. Gladly, Vicky Goswami, the Mandrax pal of Akasha Sr., was released from Dubai prison in December 2012, after his life sentence was reduced. After being released, he moved back to Kenya, which was a case of perfect timing because it increased the confidence of Bakhtash Akasha, who had chosen to wear the Don's crown while being aided by his younger brother Ibrahim Akasha. They vowed to continue their dad's legacy with Bakhtash, handling the senior operations involving contacting suppliers from China and customers of their Aba in South Africa. Aba is the substance used to make mandrax, whereas Ibrahim Akasha's role was to provide transport to the Aba, paying up bribes and suppliers of it. In addition, Ibrahim was also the enforcer since he had a fetish for guns and owned several. The bribes he paid to government officials who had seized tons of Aba from a South African drug lord called David Armstrong using Kenya port. This was after stealing became hard, and something he bragged about to a DEA agent that was working undercover to nab him. Goswami's role was to help them distribute the Aba to large-scale manufacturers of mandrax in South Africa. Bakhtash contacted a Chinese supplier, Martin Hong, in 2013 who flew from China to Mombasa to meet them. In the meeting, Akashas proposed to pay him 40,000 USD for every 1 ton of Aba he supplied them, and an additional 30,000 USD each ton for him not to sell Aba to other distributors like David Armstrong. They wanted monopoly of the business, which was hard for Martin Hong to accept. But Bakhtash Akasha asked his bro Ibrahim to take him on a trip to Nairobi National Park and other tourist sites to soften his soul. Ibrahim flew Hong to Nairobi, and after the trips, Martin Hong agreed. Martin Hong became their sole distributor, providing them with over 10 tons of Aba, which they sold. The money came fast in different currencies, and Ibrahim Akasha showed it all. His part of the cash he used to buy high-end cars while taking his friends to clubs and trips to Dubai. Money was surely not a problem. And they say with money comes power. Ibrahim could not stand another man wooing a girl he wanted because all girls were his, something a security expert Twitter user remembers witnessing with his own eyes. This power corrupted Ibrahim Akasha's mind so much that in June 2014, he brazenly kidnapped South African drug lord David Armstrong with his handgun from Royal Court Hotel Mombasa, after they had ended a meeting discussing money owed to them. You see, David Armstrong had ran into issues with immigration officials in early 2014, so he asked for Bakhtash's help. In return, he promised Bakhtash 25% stake in the mandrax manufacturing businesses he owned in Congo. However, David Armstrong ran away from Bakhtash's house without paying. He sought refuge at Stanley Levando's house, who was his Kenyan point man, where he hid until Ibrahim Akasha found him in a hotel in June and kidnapped him. Stanley Levando is a politician. David Armstrong was taken to Bakhtash's home in Nyali, where Bakhtash pistol whipped and punished him for disrespect. The beatings resulted to Armstrong accepting to pay up very fast. However, when released, he ran to tell Stanley Levando, who called Bakhtash and told him, "I'll beat the shit out of you." True to his word, Levando pulled up on the Akashas 3 days later at City Mall and caught Bakhtash by his neck. A duel ensued since both parties had guns and bodyguards, but it was until Levando wrestled Bakhtash to the ground that Ibrahim pulled out his gun and shot in the air, sending everyone in the mall running helter-skelter. This scene hit the underworld news big time, with rumors saying the Akashas were fighting since they had lost their grip in the trade. Rumors that made Tony Sanghani, Ali Punjani's man, approach Goswami with a proposal for Goswami to shift sides and work for Punjani. However, this was a wrong turn, because loyalty is the currency of narco trade. Goswami reported this to Bakhtash, who swiftly kidnapped Tony Sanghani at a Nyali club, took him to his home and beat the shit out of him. Tony was admitted to the ICU in a coma. In addition, they drove to Nyali Cinemax, where they kidnapped another associate of Ali Punjani named Speedy and beat the shit out of him too. The beating was also served at Bakhtash's home while he took pictures, and then his lifeless body was dumped outside Ali Punjani's Nyali International Hotel and Casino. This was a message to AP that nobody messes with the Akashas since BC. They two sides would finally meet during a New Year's party in 2016 where they engaged in a club brawl. The Akasha had got there to test the waters, and Ali Panjani's side wasted no time. However, since Ali Panjani was protected, he was arraigned in court secretly after Akashas had been charged when the altercation happened. After agreeing with Martin Hong, the Akasha brothers started to work to import ton quantities of methaqualone precursor chemicals into Africa in order to fuel the illicit pills production in South Africa. The Akashas used the proceeds of their methaqualone-related business to pursue other illegal ventures, including efforts to import ephedrine that was produced illegally by Avon Life Sciences in India, so that the Akasha brothers and others could manufacture methamphetamine in Africa. In connection with these methamphetamine production efforts to grow their empire, the Akashas made contact with another associate named Muhammad Asif Hafiz, also known as Sultan, and worked together to establish a methamphetamine production facility in Mozambique. However, Hafiz and other co-conspirators were forced to abandon their plan after law enforcement authorities seized approximately 18 tons of ephedrine from an Avon Life Sciences factory in Solapur, India, including several tons of ephedrine that the Akashas and Hafiz planned to use to manufacture methamphetamine in Mozambique. Over the course of several months beginning in March 2014, during telephone calls and meetings in Nairobi and Mombasa, Kenya, the Akashas agreed to supply, and in fact did supply, multi-kilogram quantities of heroin and methamphetamine to individuals they believed to be representatives of a South American drug trafficking organization, but who were in fact American authorities, working under the supervision of the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA. This was a sting operation. The Akashas agreed to procure and distribute hundreds of kilograms of heroin from suppliers in the Afghanistan-Pakistan region, and to produce and distribute hundreds of kilograms of methamphetamine, which they understood would ultimately be imported into the U.S. During a meeting in Mombasa, Kenya, in April 2014, Bakhtash Akasha Abdallah introduced an undercover officer via Skype to one of his heroin suppliers in Pakistan, who said he could provide 420 kilograms of 100% pure heroin, which he called diamond quality, for distribution in the U.S. Thereafter, in June 2014, the Akashas began discussing with the undercover officer his ability to procure methamphetamine precursor chemicals and to establish labs to produce methamphetamine for importation to the U.S. In a meeting in Mombasa in September 2014, Bakhtash Akasha Abdallah introduced a narcotics transporter from Afghanistan, who moved ton quantities of narcotics using ships. Bakhtash Akasha Abdallah also described Hafiz to the undercover officer as one of the top drug traffickers in the world. In September and October 2014, Ibrahim Akasha Abdallah personally delivered 1 kilogram samples of methamphetamine and heroin to the undercover officer in Nairobi on behalf of the Akasha brothers. In early November, Ibrahim Akasha Abdallah personally delivered an additional 98 kilograms of heroin to the undercover officers in Nairobi on behalf of the Akashas. A few days later, Ibrahim Akasha Abdallah also delivered another kilogram of methamphetamine. In the course of these preliminary transactions, the Akasha organization provided a total of 99 kilograms of heroin and 2 kilograms of methamphetamine to the CSEs, and agreed to provide hundreds of kilograms more of each. On November 9, 2014, a normal pre-planned meeting with the undercover officers turned sour when the Akashas, along with Ghulam Hussain and Vijayagiri Anandgiri Goswami, were provisionally arrested by Kenyan anti-narcotics unit officers. At the time of the provisional arrests in Kenya, 500 kilograms of heroin brokered by Hafiz were being transported through international waters to the defendants in Africa. The Akashas directed the ship to return to the Afghanistan or Pakistan region, rather than risk interdiction upon arrival. Following the arrests and during pending extradition proceedings, the Akashas continued to distribute ton quantities of narcotics. They used some of the drug proceeds to bribe Kenyan officials, including judges, prosecutors, and law enforcement officers, in an effort to avoid extradition to face the charges against them in the U.S. On January 29, 2017, the Kenyan government expelled the defendants, and the DEA took them to the Southern District of New York for prosecution. And in October 2018, Ibrahim and his elder brother Bakhtash pleaded guilty in Manhattan Federal Court to conspiring to import and importing heroin and methamphetamine, conspiring to use and carry machine guns and destructive devices in connection with their drug trafficking crimes, and obstructing justice by paying bribes to Kenyan officials in an effort to avoid being extradited to the United States. they were sentenced to 23 years behind bars. Ibrahim Akasha's attorney, Dawn Carty, argued that her client had a much lesser role than his brother, and sought a sentence of 10 years. She noted that Ibrahim Akasha was just 10 years old when his father died, and his older brother took control of the organization. In addition to the prison term, Bakhtash Akasha Abdallah was ordered to pay a $100,000 fine.